The Coach A Show is brought to you by Edmonton State Bank. Edmonton State Bank is committed to delivering exceptional products and services that exceed your expectations, like always speaking to a real person on the phone, quick local decision making, and having your community bank be an actual community member. Hello, Wolfpack Nation, and welcome to the Coach A Show. I'm your host, Tom Carter, voice of the Wolves, alongside Bill Alexander, best known in the football community as Coach A, the head coach of the Liberty Creek Wolves. And Coach, another great atmosphere here at Liberty Creek last Friday with a record crowd on hand. Even the flyover. I mean, what high school? Come on now. I mean, we've had a helicopter come in here and a flyover following the national anthem as the Portland Panthers, they clawed their way in here to the big house to challenge our Wolves. And, you know, the Panthers, they've had a history of playing championship football. They had 29 state football playoff appearances since '79. Last season, they finished, 6-4, district record of 2-3, finished with a state rank of 15. And the Panthers have been averaging about 27 points per game in that 2024 season. And so then they show up here. They're 1-0. They beat the White House Blue Devils by, 36-0, I believe it was. So, Coach, you and the staff were well aware this was going to be a massive undertaking. To speak a bit to the Panthers' maturity and their football acumen.
Yeah, you know, they got a bunch of seniors, and we'd played them last year in the Jamboree, and it was really mostly the same kids. And those players that were playing Friday night have really started since they were sophomores. And I think, you know, Portland's got maybe one of their best teams in about a quarter of a century. And I think, you know, they play in a tough region. I think they got a chance to host a playoff game this year. So we knew it was going to be a big undertaking. We knew it was going to be a challenge for us, and they proved us right.
Well, we started out good. We started with a couple of quality runs. Jackson Collier, I think, broke one or two off onto the right-hand side there, but I think we shot ourselves in the foot with a penalty right off the jump and had to punt to them, and here they came, marching down the field.
Yeah, I think they scored in like 3 or 4 plays the first time they touched it. So, you know, we knew all week 3 yards in a cloud of dust. We told our kids that was going to be the challenge, and that's what it was.
Well, Dalton, who's an excellent player, if I recall, number 4, I believe he was their back, and he was quick and big, and he was able to scoot in from about the 22-yard line. And then at that point, they lined up to kick the extra point, and we unfortunately jumped, and they said, hey, we're in a yard and a half out. Why don't we not go for 2?
Yeah, you know, we had probably, as well as we played on special teams 2 weeks ago, we had a couple of special teams miscues this week. You know, we jumped off sides on 2 extra point plays. They went for 2 twice. They got one and didn't get the other, so it kind of ended up as a wash. But we had the fumbled punt deep in our end. There was a big play that I was proud of our defense for getting off the field with, you know, a field goal attempt on that and hold them to 3 points when they got the ball to start on the 8-yard line. And, you know, they did a really good job. We had what we thought was a great kickoff return scheme, and they did a good job of kicking it where we weren't. So if we lined up a little deeper, they kicked it a little shorter. And if we scooted up to catch that, he kicked it a little deeper. And so they just, you know, they were very well coached and just did a really good job with that.
You know, Coach, we could go on and on about the game, but it was a lot of the same thing over and over. We'll get to that in a minute. But, you know, at halftime you go in, it's been a rough first half. There's been a lot of banging and pushing out there by some big guys. What's your message to the team at half?
Yeah, it's really, you know, our message really didn't change. You know, it was 24-0. We talked about the White House game a couple of years ago where we were down 20-0 at half and really had a chance, came back and we lost that one 20-18 and had the ball late in the game with a chance to win. So, you know, we talked about we needed something to go our way. We needed to get a stop on when, you know, we kicked off to them, and we didn't do that. But we talked about the fact also that we just knew that they were a really good football team, and they played really clean. They didn't make many mistakes. They didn't have any special teams miscues. And, you know, that our goal in that whole game, you know, we've been talking the last couple of weeks that this is really about us. It's about us getting better. It's about us preparing, and so the goal in the second half was just for us to continue to try to improve, find some ways to move the ball, find a way to get off the field, and just to try to get better. And so, it wasn't an ugly halftime. We came in and tried to make some adjustments, but it was a pretty positive message to the team.
Well, you come out and start the second half. It was pretty much repeat and rinse of what we saw in the first half, and it seemed like the Panthers ran the same play over and over and over with just minor variations here. We'll go to the left side, we'll go to the right side, but it was, the same play essentially. I mean, was that my imagination, or is that what we saw out there?
It was buck sweep, and they ran it out of an unbalanced set, and they ran it out of a normal set, and they ran it out of two guys in the backfield and out of shotgun. It literally was the same blocking scheme, and we knew that they were going to do that. We had three different fronts that we played. We played our base front. We got in a bear front. We tried slanting to it. We played with where our corner was fitting, whether it was outside or inside. We had 4 or 5 different things, and even came in at halftime and talked about playing it a different way than we played it in the first half. And, I think the bottom line was it didn't matter how we lined up or tried to play it. They were just so much more physical than we were and bigger than we were at the point of attack. We couldn't stop it. Not consistently enough to keep them from doing it.
Well, speaking of that, they got more than their fair share of impressive players with a lot of talent and a whole lot of size.
Yeah.
And let's start with big number 11, Avery Hughes. What can you say about Avery?
He played really well. He was a real difference maker on the defensive line. I think he's a Navy commit, and he was one of those guys blocking at the point of attack on that buck sweep, and then he was he was a guy making it hard for us on offense. So he's a really good player.
Also, obviously, credit to him going to Navy, Annapolis. I mean, he's got to be a smart kid too, which doesn't hurt.
I hear he's a really, really good kid.
Yeah, all the way around. Yeah. That's fantastic. How about big, and I do mean big, number 40. I don't even know how to get your arms around this guy.
I apologized to the team at some point Friday night. I don't remember if it was in the first half or after we came in, but I said we didn't practice tackling below the waist enough last week, and I didn't talk about that because we kept hitting them, and we would hit them up top, and I don't think any of our guys could even get our arms around them, hitting them up top. And so that really was probably my fault for not focusing enough on, hey, we got to tackle these guys below the waist because they're just too big and strong to tackle up top.
They really were. I mean, he was a load.
Yeah.
And I think I even commented to you after the game, well, why in the world, if I'm them, I'm probably giving him the ball a few more times than he got the ball.
Yeah, I think, for them, the buck sweep was really going well, so there was no need for them to feed him, except, they gave him the ball a lot on 3rd and short, I think, after the early parts of the game.
How about their quarterback, Brogan High? He did a really nice job of taking care of the ball.
He did, yeah.
Not a lot of turnovers.
I don't think they didn't have any turnovers. He threw some balls early in the second half and got some completions. I felt like we defended their play action pass really well. I don't think they completed any of those, but yeah, he did a great job just managing the offense and taking care of the football.
And then I think there was a couple of other guys that I think was worth noting. Dalton, who played really well. Bundley, I believe his name was, that played extremely well.
Yeah.
Both of those guys were worth mentioning for Portland. But obviously, this game really ended no differently than it started. I mean, they were dominant, largely based on maturity, acumen of being, these guys have been doing this 4 years. The whole team is nearly seniors.
Yes.
I mean, next year they're going to have a bit of a rebuild.
Yeah, I hope so. It'd be nice to get one against them next year. But yeah, I think they are a very mature football team, a very good football team. They had a really great scheme against us, and they play in a tough region with Beach and Hendersonville and Station Camp and Hunters Lane, and I think they're good enough to compete for a home playoff spot, which would be huge for the Portland people.
Well, Coach, and I don't want to take anything away from Portland, and we're not doing by what we're about to say here, but the Panthers to me just seemed like they were playing with an attitude, like something they were out to prove something beyond just winning this game here at the Big House.
Yeah, well, I think they do have a pedigree of championship football, and they haven't. I don't think that I asked their coach. I don't think they've hosted a playoff game since 2000 or 2001, and so I think the Portland people feel like this is their year. They got a really good football team. Their coaches are doing a really good job with them, and I think they are on a mission. I think they would like to, play that first Friday night in November in Portland, and I think they got a good shot at doing it.
Well, I think a lot of folks would wonder, and I've often wondered myself. I've been on the other side of it. I've been on, the side that we were on, where we've gone up against some folks. I had a friend that played at a D2 school, and he was a guard, but he was about 5'6", and he was a fire plug. He was a big boy, but he lined up against Auburn one time.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, I looked across the line, and he said, this gentleman's nostril was bigger than my helmet.
Yeah.
And it's always a challenge. So what do you say to a team to keep them focused and engaged?
Well, I think our guys believe in our process. We talk all the time about why we play the people we play, and why we play schools that are bigger than us, why we play schools that we know are going to have really good football teams, and it's about us getting better. And so it's about us improving. It's about our ultimate goals as a program, and so our guys have really bought into that. And I think they understand. Our goal Friday night was to try to make some things happen, keep the ball game close, have a chance to win in the end. Portland was too good for that and played too clean. I think that was the biggest difference between the Portland and East Robertson game. We had a few breaks go our way. Our guys made a few breaks for us in that game. We didn't get those in the Portland game, but it's still all, we talk all the time about looking through the windshield and not in the rearview mirror. And even when we came in at halftime, it's about what can we do for the next 24 minutes for us to get better.
Well, the one thing that I took away, and I've seen this time and time out of this group of kids. I've been following them now this is what, team 4.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really starting to see some guys that we've seen all the way through school. And this young team never stops trying. And no matter what the score was, no matter how big the guys were, and there was some slobber knocking going on, these guys kept coming after it. These young wolves, they just don't lay down and quit.
Yeah, when I did film today with my group, we looked at, and obviously there's some things to correct, but you could see just flashes and sparks of us doing some things really well, of us being physical, of us running and making plays. And so, that's one of the things that, we need to be able to show. Yes, they kind of took it to us for a little bit, but, here's a snapshot of you doing things exactly the way we need to do them, and doing them fast and physical. And so I think down the road, that's going to help us.
Well, I hear you say it all the time. I actually heard it a few minutes before we started this program, where you're talking about, what was it? TCB was what old Elvis Presley used to say, right? All the time. Now, we've got some viewers who would say who.
Yeah.
All right. But for my era, he was the king, taking care of business. Now, they may think Bad Bunny is probably saying it now, but taking care of business means what to the Wolfpack program?
Well, I think, for us, we haven't shied away from playing anybody. I didn't schedule the game. But, we played Murfreesboro, Oakland the very first year we opened. And, when we met today at the end, our ultimate program goal is to play in Chattanooga. We want to play in the state championship. And to do that, I just feel like we have to play against good people. We got to work against good people. And that's why we scrimmage the people we scrimmage. That's why we open the season with the people we open the season with. And, it's about winning in November and not necessarily winning in August. And so to win in November, I feel like we got to get better. And, we don't want to go 10-0 in the regular season and then get beat in the first round of the playoffs. So, we play those tough people so that when we play other people, we have an opportunity to play well, and it's about getting better. I think we're getting ready to hit a stretch of our schedule where none of these teams are slouches. There's some really good football teams in the next 3 or 4 weeks of our schedule. They all have really positive things going on in their program, but they're not 5A Portland. They're not they're not an East Robertson team that very likely could play for a state championship. So, taking care of business means, we've been working to prepare for these games so that we can go out and really have our best opportunity to win these weeks.
Well, we got an opportunity this coming Friday, September 5th. We're going to travel up to Pleasant View and to take on those Sycamore War Eagles. What should we expect from Sycamore?
Yeah, they're 1-1. They won week 1, and then they got beat this past week. They had about 4 touchdowns called back, or they would have won this past week. They've got a elite running back who was All-State last year in 3A. Has been a starter since he was a sophomore. We actually faced him as a sophomore when they came here in the first round of the playoffs. And, he's a super player. Their quarterback's a very efficient passer, throws the deep ball really, really well, and they have at least one receiver. They have about 4 receivers that catch the ball, but one in particular that's a real threat to catch the deep ball. And so, they're pretty good on offense. They're scrappy on defense. They're going to bring a lot of hard edge pressure on defense and really try to plug up the front. So they're a good football team. They probably they finished second in their region last year. I think they're probably in a region this year where they very easily could host a playoff game in 3A. So it's going to be a challenge for us, but it's a game that I think is very winnable for us.
Well, one thing that we'd love to have happen, and that is not just to win, of course, but to have a great crowd up there to support our team.
Absolutely.
We've been so fortunate here. We've had the right atmosphere. We've had these. I'm looking out because we're looking out over the stadium as we speak, and this place was packed Friday night. Even though everyone knew we were going to have a tough time, everybody showed up. That means so much to the program, to the kids. It means dollars to the football program in itself too, that you desperately need to run, to take us to this next level.
Yeah, I think we had a great crowd. I haven't got the final numbers, but based on what the GoFan report was, I think very likely that this was the largest crowd ever in school history. And, it was electric, and I felt our people were into the game. And, we just had I just hardly think there's so many people that are involved, from the quarterback club to cheer and dance to the band. There's so many people involved in making our Friday night atmosphere what it is. And I just really believe we got one of the best Friday night atmospheres in Middle Tennessee. And so we're super excited about that and the community support that we have.
Well, I can say now, as you know, and I won't say where I came from, but I came from a pretty well-known football program, and I can tell you, we never had a flyover or a helicopter, so we're way off, way out ahead on this this front already. We need your support. It's the kickoff will be at 7:00. It'll be at Sycamore. Come on up to Pleasant View and support the Pack quickly on Thursday, September 4th. The old Beach Buccaneers, their freshmen are going to come rolling in here. And you know a little bit about Beach.
I do know. I graduated from there and spent 9 years there teaching and coaching.
Yeah, and so they're they're coming over here. They're freshmen to take on our freshmen. Now, our freshman Wolves are pretty doggone talented, and they're exciting to watch. I want to point out one thing real quick before we forget. 6:30 is that kickoff, not 6. Most of the freshman games are 6. This is a 6:30 kickoff. But say just a word or two about these freshman Wolves.
Yeah, the freshmen went to James Lawson last week and won 40-12, and really kind of dominated that football game from start to finish. We played Mount Juliet here 2 weeks ago, and we're very competitive in that. And so, obviously Beach is kind of the standard around here right now with football, and so they beat us pretty handily last year. So we're hoping to close that gap some and maybe even close it all the way and get a win. Who knows? I think our freshmen play really hard. We're excited for the future of our program because of them.
Well, Coach, once again, a lot of games being played on this field, but we'd love to see you here Thursday night and then in Pleasant View on Friday. And I think that pretty much puts a wrap on this edition of the Coach A Show. Many thanks to the Edmonton Bank for being the exclusive sponsor of the Coach A Show. They really are a community bank that's actually a community member, and we so much appreciate them, and we hope that you support Edmonton Bank. A special thanks to Brian Holloway, Miles Catron, the production team of the Coach A Show. And, Coach, your final thoughts.
Just come out Friday night. I think we got a great game plan. Our guys are working hard. We had a great practice this morning. It's Labor Day, and kids showed up early this morning. We had a really good practice, and so we're excited to go out and compete again Friday night.
Well, thanks, Coach, and thanks to Wolfpack Nation for your support of our athletic programs and the Coach A Show. We'll be back next Wednesday when we'll break down this game with Sycamore, and we look forward to seeing you there Friday at 7. And for Coach A, athletic staff here at Liberty Creek, and all of Wolfpack Nation, you have yourself a safe and winning week.